Hey y'all, welcome to Shades of Brown, the podcast that discusses the ever-evolving and sometimes contradicting thoughts of a Black millennial. I'm your host, AlyB, and thank you so much for being here with me for another episode. If it's your first episode, welcome to the fam. If you enjoy this episode, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Of course, that's if you listen on Apple. This week, I have an amazing guest. Her name is Torrian Tims. She is an educator, an ADHD advocate, and the host of Sistas With ADHD Podcast. Welcome to the show, Torrian. How you doing?
I'm good, girl. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I am so excited about this conversation. May, as many of you know, some may not, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I thought that talking about our mental health would be a good way to close out season 4 of Shades of Brown. Yes, this is the season finale. So for the last several months, Torrian, I've been researching and observing and self-assessing. And girl, I'm convinced. I am convinced that I am neurodivergent. I'm convinced. You can't tell me otherwise. I have every reason to believe that specifically that neurodivergence shows up for me as adult ADHD. And I am in the process of seeking a thorough psychological assessment and a potential diagnosis if need be, right? It could not be, right? However, I'm convinced. So I am, of course, going to make sure I get a proper diagnosis. But in the meantime, though, I thought it'd be great to have this conversation because in talking with other folks who do have adult ADHD, we're really just one other person. I only know one person with it. That's a Black woman. And I've been talking to her about it. I'm like, man, this is a lot. And I also am convinced that this is much more common than we would ever imagine it to be.
Right.
I figured let's have the conversation. Let's unpack it. Let's figure out how some of us may connect with this. Maybe we have relatives who are neurodivergent. Maybe we ourselves are. And within our Black communities, these types of things. Though conversations surrounding mental health are becoming more prevalent and we are taking away the stigma and we are normalizing it, specific diagnoses. What's the plural form of diagnosis?
I think it's diagnoses.
Yes, specific diagnoses, that's still not as common. And when it comes to specific labels, we kind of shy away from it. And I am not, in search of more labels to place on myself. Okay, I got enough going on in my brain. All right. I got enough going on. But I do think that this specifically is something worth talking about. And I think it'll give so much language to certain experiences. Because now that I see what's attached to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what that is.
This is my whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. When I came across your page, girl, let me tell you, I felt so seen. And I was telling you this before we started recording, but oh my God, I'm like, it literally makes me emotional because I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's a community out there that understands me, that understands my life. I'm not tripping. I'm not going crazy. This is a whole thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's unpack it. Before we get deep into specifically ADHD, can you explain to us what neurodivergence is?
Yes. So neurodivergence, by definition, is basically explaining the full spectrum of the human brain and what it would be capable of. So by career, I was a science teacher. So I try to talk about this like that. If you guys remember your middle school science class, you probably talked about something called biodiversity. And so that's the different types of life that are all around Earth, right? So you need different types of plants, you need different types of predators. All of those things are going to collectively help an ecosystem have the greatest chance of survival or stability. It is a good thing to be diverse. So the root, you asked me about neurodivergence, but the root of it would be neurodiversity.
Okay.
And that's looking at the full spectrum of the diversity that can be the human brain. So that's an umbrella for your typical average status quo brain, all the way to, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. It could be autism and everything on that spectrum. It could be ADHD. So biodiversity is the full spectrum of it. Neurodivergent is anything that's deviating from what we consider to be typical or what, based on age and ability, we expect people to be able to do. And so there are a group of people who have been walking around who are diverging from that. So it's not just autism, it's not just ADHD. Neurodivergent is anything that's deviating from what is the status quo or normal. But if you think about it, we've seen it in our community. We've been seeing it. You know, we talking CP time, and we're thinking it's so easy to label some things around ADHD to be like lazy or dumb, and it's so easy to mischaracterize it. So it was very interesting for me to learn it about myself, but I don't want to ramble too much. But yes, neurodivergence is anything that's deviating from what is the neurotypical status quo brain type.
Thank you for breaking that down in that way. I love that you have the science background because that really helps me. Like the analogy you gave in regards to biodiversity, it makes so much sense, right? Just diversity with the brain. Like that makes
right.
So
and
much
it's
sense.
like if all the different things that the brain, that the human body can come up with, all the different mutations, if you will.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that everybody's brain was going to be just the same?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
I love that so much because even though I've been familiar with the term, maybe for the last, year or two, possibly, I still hadn't thought of it in how you broke it down, like just brain diversity. You know what I'm saying? Like I had never thought about it like that. I was still thinking other, like some other form of brain versus we just have different kind. They're all normal. They're all whatever, It's just diversity.
Right. And it's closely related to, I don't know if you guys have heard of like the multiple intelligence theory, which is like everyone is intelligent in something.
Yeah.
It just might not be that traditional academic setting. Some people are geniuses when it comes to dance and the arts. Some people are geniuses when it comes to numbers. Some people are geniuses when it comes to, spatial reasoning. Maybe they're architects or builders. So there's theories out there that say that everyone's coming with some type of tool where they can discover their own intelligence or their own genius. And I feel like those two kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
As far as neurodiversity is concerned, everybody has something.
I really believe that. I didn't know there was a name for it, but I really believe that, which is why I have, for the most part, I have struggled with how we do secondary education, wanting everyone to fit in this box, in this mold. And it's like, this is not it though. There are some basics we should all have, right? But beyond that, we should be cultivating each person on an individual, scale. Of course, that is very difficult to do when you've got, so many folks to work with. I get it. So I don't want to, criticize the school system. It's just, I really struggle with how
Girl,
we
you
do.
can criticize it. We need more people criticizing and critiquing it. I work in it and I critique it to the T. So yes.
Yeah.
Because we're the product of it.
Yeah.
And I think we were the first generation. The millennial generation was the first one to give it the good old fashioned hard try. We're going to go to college.
Yep.
We're going to do exactly what you guys said to do. I don't know what I don't know your upbringing. I don't know if your parents went to college or not, but mine did. So they were basically like, okay, well, now you got to get your master's. And so it's like we kept getting handed these ideas that were going to lead to happiness, to success. And now that we've done it, we're like, something wasn't right.
Yeah, it didn't work. The goalpost kept changing. And it's like, okay,
so to change.
Right. And it continues to change. And it's like, okay, we've done all these things. I've got the degree. I've got the degrees with an S. Hello, we're Black women, Black folks. Listen, Black women, we're going to get degrees. Okay.
We're going to get us a degree.
We're going to get us a degree. And it's like, all right, so I've done all the things. Now what? And now, and of course, we're going to get into it with how we've done things, right? It's like the 9 to 5, right? We are productive in the mornings and we have lunch at this time and then we, end work at this time and then we go home, and whether it's school, work, whatever, everything is so schedule driven and everyone's on the same kind of clock. And I have never been I always feel like I was behind. I'm like, I don't fit this schedule thing y'all do. I'm not a morning person. I'm a night owl. I am my best around the hours of 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. That's my sweet spot.
It's been my, and that's my life. And I'm just now at my age getting to a point where I'm like, I need to take that part of me seriously. It's funny. I got a job at an elementary school, and I don't know if you know, but elementaries are typically even earlier. And I'm coming from secondary, and I'm like, I cannot get up to the point that I want to go do a sleep study. Then I find out that ADHD, and being up at night or being a night owl, it has a name, delayed sleep phase syndrome, are related. And I'm like, dang, my whole life, I never wanted to go to bed.
Yeah.
Like I would be sleepy at school.
Yep.
I made good grades. I could do my stuff, but I would be sleepy and daydreaming at school.
Yep.
And then when it was time to go to bed, I was sneaking and turning my TV back on.
Yep.
And it seems like I was just being rebellious. But now that I'm low-key mothering my inner child, I'm like, no, your brain was ready to go. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes I become up with my own theories to the point where I'm like, I might need to go study this so that my theories could be legit. But I really feel like just like you have nocturnal animals, why would you not have nocturnal human beings?
Girl.
Come on. Like, because I'm like, I want to be up at night. It makes me so mad to go to bed.
Yes.
And I'm oversleep if I don't.
Right. Certain industries do accommodate, for different schedules, right? You have like a bunch of manufacturing plants where they're open 24/7. So they have a first shift, third shift, first shift, second shift, third shift, right? But just in general, I'm like, I wish we lived in a world where like we all have these just varying patterns and schedules where it's like everything's open. I can go get dinner at 10 p.m. if I want to. And I find myself literally every day, I'm just like, hey, what's for dinner? But it's 9 o'clock and I'm like, oh crap, everything's closed. And I'm in this freaking panic attack again because I've done the exact same thing again, right? Again. And it's like, well, I didn't want to eat earlier. This is the time,
Right. When my partner be like, what you eating for dinner? What we eating for dinner? I'd be like, I don't know. I ain't even thought about that.
I haven't even thought about it.
Whatever you put in front of me, I'm going to eat it.
I haven't thought about it. Or like, at work, you're getting emails 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Listen, I can do a whole day's worth of work between 2 and 5. Because that is where I'm like most up, most aware, most stimulated. Like, okay, let's go. And I thought over the years, like maybe it's just my job I didn't like. That's why I couldn't get up. But it's like, no, regardless of the setting, I'm like, bro, I cannot get up in the morning. It's not happening.
I'm glad I'm not alone. I just got a text today. They were like, are you here? I'm like, no.
No.
And I can't come up with any more lies. So I'm to the point where I'm just like, I'm ready to let y'all go.
And, we label it as a character flaw, right? It's like all these things. And it's like, y'all, like, I promise you this thing ain't personal. I promise you my intention is, what I'm saying? Like to be where I'm supposed to be on time, whatever. And it's been a joke. Let's bring this back in.
Going really back.
So you've explained to us what neurodiversity is. Can you specifically break down ADHD? What exactly is ADHD?
Sure, I sure can. So ADHD, by definition, has evolved over time, but it's an acronym for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. In my opinion, the name is a little bit of a misnomer because it is not that we have a deficit of attention. It's not that we do not have attention. Where the complexity comes in at is where the attention will go. So the best way to describe it, 2022, knowing what we know, the research is out there. It is a neurodevelopmental condition or impairment of the brain's self-management system, or what you like to call executive functions. I'm an analogy girl. So imagine your brain is like this big corporation and your executive function is like this secretary. And it tells the brain what to do, when to go, where, how to prioritize this first, this, that last. But our secretary parties at night. She does what she wants to do. She's on her phone. Her feet are kicked up. And, she literally, I said that, I'm giving her a character flaw, but I'm just giving you an idea that like this, our secretary is not the same as other people's secretary. Yeah. Our secretary is like, well, this looks way cooler. Let's do that. And it literally is an inability. I try to drill that to people. Like it's literally outside of my control. If I could be on time to every event I ever went to, I promise I would. I hate walking in late, but that's to the point now where my friends kind of expect it. And I try now. The thing is, I try to be respectful of their time too. Where it's like, okay, I'm not gonna be dramatically late where you waiting for me for 2 hours, but at the same time, please don't wait for me. Go enjoy the event. I will be there. Yeah. So, but yes, it's a neurodevelopmental condition or impairment of the brain's self-management system. That's the best way to say that. There are 3 different types of ADHD. Back in the day, I think a lot of people are still using like ADD. Mm-hmm. So we don't have ADD anymore. So there's only one ADHD with 3 different subtypes. Okay. So you have your inattentive ADHD, and that'll be you're having issues with maybe you don't pay attention well. Basically, you might daydream, you might lose things very easily, you probably have a short attention span. And when I say lose things, you're losing things that you need every day, like keys. I've been late today. I've been late for that. Daydreaming, your working memory is very short. So you could be like thinking of something in a meeting and then it's your turn to speak and you really can't recall what it is you have been thinking about the whole time. Or somebody might, you might need to recall a piece of information and you know it. But in that moment, your short-term working memory can't recall it in that moment. Then you have your hyperactive subtype. And that's kind of like a constant feel of like restlessness. Like you feel like you always need to be doing something. You might be trying to do several tasks at one time. You're probably very impulsive. And that can, impulsivity shows up in a lot of ways. So for some people, it's you're a dangerous driver. Some people it's like you're impulsive sexually. There's a lot of things, or you might be shopping or you overspend. As a child, you could have been like all over the place, almost like you were running around with the motor in your back or something like that. So that's your hyperactivity. And then your third type would be a combined type. And so that basically means that you're pulling symptoms from both. And so for me personally, I'm considered combined type. For women, a lot of women, hyperactivity shows up as like over talking or like interrupting people while they're talking, or rambling and talking too much, or not being able to control how much you're letting out. Hyperactivity could look like, it's just so many ways that it can show up. But I'm going to be very specific to pointing out how it looks in women, because over time, what we found out is women are severely diagnosed, and then Black women are even more severely misdiagnosed. Like, right. I think at one point it was 5 boys to every 2 girls, or 1.2 girls. That number is picking up now. But I think it's because most women show more inattentive traits. So you're daydreaming, you're not interrupting class. So you don't really get on anyone's radar. As to where young men might be showing more of the hyperactive type. And so if you're running around the classroom, or you just seem like you can't get it together, or constantly standing up, that's interrupting class. So they tend to get that diagnosis earlier. At one point, they thought only men got it and only boys got it. And that's simply not true.
Yeah. I laughed earlier because, first, you're describing me to a T. And anyone who's listening, who knows me personally or has listened to this podcast from the inception of it, knows that I've spoken about like my habit of like cutting people off inadvertently, and how it has like negatively impacted my relationships, and how that's something I'm constantly working on, or how I ramble and I'm long-winded, and I start talking point A. For most folks, it's like just point A to point B. For me, it's like point A, then A1, A1B. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Let me add context over here.
Yeah. Oh, I'm context queen. Context.
I don't care. I'm not changing that about
context.
myself.
I got to have context. Because you got to understand. You got to understand the full picture.
I need to know who they were. Yes.
Absolutely.
I need to know who they were, who they mama. Now, where are they from? Because all those things matter.
All of those things matter. In my head, they matter. And they matter to you too. So I'm going to tell you. So that's why I was laughing, because I'm like, I hope folks who know me personally are listening like, okay, that's what that girl, her brain is different. Yes, my brain is different.
It's just different, girl. But in that same breath, I always make it a notion to try to point out there are some positives with ADHD. A lot of your comedians have ADHD. Why? Because they're good storytellers. We're very compassionate people, intelligent, What ADHD is not is a learning disorder. Yeah. Now it can affect learning. Does that make sense? So
yes.
You can learn just fine, but and I'm in education, so I always speak to the classroom because I think that gives us a lot of roots in just our overall perception of ourselves. So you might not be able to learn well in that Eurocentric classroom where you're sitting down and everybody's in desk and everybody's facing forward and doing the same thing and you're like a choir. That might not be the best way for you to learn, and that's probably why you struggle with learning. But we're very creative. We're outside the box. thinkers, we're innovative, you know, we're visionaries. I'm definitely a big picture type of girl. We're typically good communicators. So that communication could be in a lot of different ways. Maybe it's through song, maybe it's through graphic design, maybe you can write a code email or whatever. You write great papers. It just, you know, because we like all the context, we're able to reach all the people. So you see a lot of people ADHD tend to go into marketing because they know how to reach so many different people and communicate something that they all can understand. So it's not all bad, girl. We got some traits. We got some good things about it.
Yeah. I love that. And maybe I shouldn't give a disclaimer. Maybe I should just, this is me people pleasing, I guess. But it's like, I don't want anyone to think like the tone of this is like giving excuses for behavior that society has deemed inappropriate, or these are character flaws. It's like, we're just giving language and context to the why behind these things. It doesn't mean that we are disregarding this behavior, that we're not trying to improve certain things, right? Because if I am choosing to go into corporate America, right, and their standard is 9 to 5, I have chosen, right, to submit to that authority, right, and honor that schedule, you know? So I just wanted to make that clear that the tone isn't to excuse, it's just to explain.
Right. And I love how you said that. While it's not an excuse, it is an explanation. And I think it's probably a good point for me to bring up the fact that it's good to know you have ADHD, because then you can finally start creating supports for yourself. And I know most people are scared to death to go talk to HR about a disability, but ADHD is recognized as a disability by the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it is just that. So it's regardless of how people feel about it or their perception, it is you are unable to do something. And if you found out you had ADHD, you could literally go to your 9 to 5 and say, hey, I would like, you know, you got to talk to your doctor has to sign off on it. You know, you struggle with getting up. They all need to know all that. But, you know, you're talking to your doctor about what your struggles are. And then you could go to your job and say, hey, I love working here. However, my doctor, I have an accommodation that I'm going to need, and I'm going to need a grace of 30 minutes every day, or whatever that it looks like for you, to where you're not getting pink slips every 2 weeks because you just simply can't get here on time. So that's why it's so important that we're aware of our neurodivergence so that we can support ourselves. It needs to be, hey, can y'all have stress balls, or can you have something for me to play with my hands because I get fidgety during meetings? That's what inclusivity looks like. So I can go on and on, but
girl, I remember I was in a meeting once and I was fidgeting with the pen, and I didn't know it. It was like just
the click one,
that kind of tap. And my supervisor just kindly was like, could you please stop that? Like, that is really like annoying. She's like, I'm sorry. And she wasn't being insensitive or like mean.
Yeah, it's just that your like, tapping was bothering her. Yeah.
Right. She's like, that is just really, really, really bothering me. I'm like, oh, my bad. I didn't even realize I was doing it. It was just my nature to be just fidgety, you know? But like now looking back, hindsight, it's like all of these little things, you know, that have made me appear. Well, I am socially awkward, not appear. I am socially awkward. But like all these little things, you know, that are like, just like, girl, you're doing the most. You're cutting folks off. You're fidgeting around. You're rest. What's happening? And it's like, okay, so there's something for this. So having the language for it, like you said, we can now position ourselves to get the tools to support us, to make sure our communities understand and support us, so that we are showing up as our best and providing value to every space we enter. So yeah, and I'm also convinced that like it runs in my family. Like no one in my family is diagnosed, but I myself have diagnosed some of them folks. Like we need to all go through somebody. It is
absolutely
really
hereditary. And that's why I try to get people, there's, you know, if you look up causes of ADHD, you'll see different things like blunt force trauma to the head might be causing it, or premature births could be a cause. But one of the number one causes that people are able to connect is heredity. Your mom or your dad have it. If they're not willing to admit, you can for sure go to your grandma or your grandpa. Somebody was tinkering somewhere. Somebody has a junk room somewhere. Somebody has been doing a lot, and people just thought that that's just the way they were, and it is just the way they are. But they've just been coping. And I know for women, because you know, gender roles and stereotypes and all those things, we will spend our whole life just trying to mask it. And girl, Was I trying to do that? And I just was, it's dry. You're going to burn out because you're literally working double time trying to be yourself and be authentic while trying to cover up what is authentic to you.
Yeah, so, that's good.
The thing, girl.
That's good. I just like, as we talk, it's like so many moments in time are coming up where even I was frustrated with someone else, you know, for behaviors that you're explaining, you know, it's like, why are you always losing your keys? Like, just put them in the freaking same place every freaking time and you won't lose them. Right. But now I understand that thinking is insensitive of me because it could just very well be a very difficult thing for folks to keep up with.
And they still, I mean, you know, they still need to put them in the same place every day.
Yeah.
It's probably more so important for ADHDers to have stuff in the same place every day, but that inattentiveness, I still do it to this day. And I know I have ADHD. I'm running in the house. Maybe I done held my urine all day long and now I got to pee. So I'm sprinting in the house. I threw my keys on the bed or, you know, my work bag and I go use the restroom. Now I done got off the restroom. I wash my hands down on my phone, put that down and go put something in the microwave. Next thing you know, my keys done fell behind the headboard. You know what I'm saying? And I done wasted an hour of my morning panicking, wondering where they are, having to lie on a text like, hey, I'm in traffic. I ain't even left my house yet. You know, it's just so much. And so I guess why I decided I was like, I'm gonna bring awareness to this is because, like you said, it's an insensitivity where people feel like it's literally you and you're a bad person or you're irresponsible, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, it's not that. It's this. It's that secretary or those executive functioning skills.
Yeah, I love that. People with ADHD are not irresponsible. They are not lazy. Let's make that very, very clear. Okay, saints and friends. So we typically hear this showing up in kids, you know, and I never had anyone ever, question, if I had some sort of attention deficit or anything like that. You know, I did very, very well in school. So like you said, you know, it kind of just went under the radar. But we did hear about it, though, with other children. I didn't hear about adult ADHD until recently. How does it show up differently in adults versus children?
You know, I'm going to say yes and no. It's really not that different. It's just that now we're adults. And so impulsivity, here's a good example. I'm kind of telling my business, but when I was a little girl, I had this impulse. I was impulsive, almost to the point of maybe kleptomaniac. Like I just would see something and wanted. So whether it's my grandmother's brooch and I thought it was cute, I'm going to put it on me. One time I was in the store, and I'm going extreme with my impulsivity, but here I'll connect it in a second. Okay. One time we were in like Ulta. Ulta was still here back in the 90s. And I think this when Spice Girls was out. So it was like a frosted blue eyeliner. And I'm like, oh, I need that because that's what Spice we wear, you know. But I was scared to ask my mom because I was only 8. I knew she wasn't going to let me have makeup. So I put it in my pocket, right? So it's just... Wow. I never walked out of Ulta though, because they had that, I think Sensormatics had just come out and I was like, well, I don't want that thing to go off. And I threw it on the counter. But my mom saw me. She saw me take it out of my pocket. So I still got to whip it. You know how that goes. So, but the impulsivity was a thing. And impulsivity also shows up with eating and snacking as children. So some of these kids that you see that might be overweight and literally can't control how much they're eating, is that impulsive because that they're not... Low dosages of dopamine are also linked to the ADHD brain. And that dopamine is that reward or that satisfaction, reward, pleasure hormone. And so if you don't have a lot, if your brain is not passing a lot of dopamine, you could be eating, looking for that satisfaction and never find it. Now, I'm going to link that to my adult life. As an adult, now I got a big girl job. Now I got a little money. I can just go in the store and get whatever. I can't. But that's when in my mind is like this fear of missing out. And now I'm in impulsive shopping. Oh, and now you gave me a credit card and I don't have to see that I'm spending money. Throw it in the bag. I know I'm calling y'all out. Sorry, but
I mean, look, I won't be like by my head in shame. Like, listen.
So I got in severe credit card debt, and
it's not my fault.
I'm trying to tell you, and I almost want to be like, I think we should be able to call credit card companies and be like, I have a disability. I'm serious. Like, and not that I'm not going to pay y'all back. I'm going to pay y'all your money back. But as far as y'all, then the credit card bill come in and now I'm inattentive and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think to pay that. And now I'm moving on. Next thing you know, we got I would bet everybody that has bad credit because the credit cards has ADHD, but we'll run that data later. We'll run it later.
Let's do what it says.
Yeah, I was like,
sign me up for that one.
I'm gonna do a survey. All of it is linked. None of these things are by chance. So whereas as I was impulsive as a little girl and I just wanted what I wanted, as an adult, I still wanted what I wanted, but I had money now. So you ain't gotta steal. You don't have to be. And mind you, didn't nobody teach me how to steal. There are some people that steal for survival. I wasn't one of those children. I was fortunate enough to have everything I needed, plus some. It was just like it was impulsiveness. That's the best way I can explain it. Yeah. And let's see.
Wow, you are helping me because listen, my old judgment of brain was just like, "Ooh, child," but that okay. Wow, you're helping me. You're breaking some barriers.
Yeah, we gonna get delivered today. I call myself hood, holy, and hyper focused. This is the gospel that I'm gonna spread. Yeah. But even just losing things. So I'm primarily inattentive, but I'm combined. The combined is the hyperactivity is happening internally in my brain, talking too much. But as a little girl, I lost stuff. I'm losing homework. I'm losing that pencil that my teacher just let me borrow. My backpack is a mess, the whole nine. As an adult, I'm losing keys. I'm losing that thing that I set down that I really needed or whatever. My space can tend to be a mess. and I've gone to the point where I've just embraced it and just been like, okay, we're gonna have reset days, or I try to have baskets. And these things might sound like they should just be normal because I'm an adult woman, but that's literally not how my brain works. There are theories out there that liken ADHD. They try to say that people who are living with ADHD now might have the remnants of hunter-gatherer people, to where they're constantly nomadic. They're constantly on the go because they're hunting. So wherever the prey is where they will go. This theory, but I can't even recall the guy's name right now, but when his son got diagnosed with ADHD, he was kind of observing how his son moved around. And it's like, you're always going to that next thing, but you're never quite settling. And so when you're constantly going like that, you're almost building these little almost like junk nests or doom houses, or some people call them. So people with ADHD are just constantly going to the next thing. It's not much settling to stop. Your original question was, is it different? I don't think it's that much different. I still see those same traits. It's just they're adultified, but it's the same thing. Now you have a little bit more control over your life.
Man, I'm sure we're all thinking of people in our heads I know someone like that. I know someone like that. Because I'm thinking of my family. I ain't gonna call y'all names, but I'm thinking of my family. That is that person. That is that person. Because for me, it doesn't show up in the, I don't have the junk piles. I'm actually, the way my brain works, things that go through my brain is one of the things that may be a struggle. It actually helps the other thing that may be a struggle. So I don't know. When I've been depressed, my OCD has helped my depression because I wouldn't allow my room to get to a certain, place. It's I got to make up this.
So now you're kind of having anxiety driven,
Yeah. So I don't deal with the losing things
cluttered space.
Cluttered spaces because that intensifies my anxiety. Child, Jesus.
and that's very common. I am not a psychologist or a doctor, but I liken that to almost a form of masking as well. And like you said, you have a coexisting condition, or they also use the word comorbid condition, like OCD or anxiety. Those things, they're like cousins to ADHD. They run hand in hand. They run right near each other.
Yeah.
So you'll find that a lot of people, I'm thinking of a family member in particular, my own as well. She's always cleaning, to the point where it's dude, it's just 2 dishes, but it's just let me get up and do it. But that's the way that she's coping with whatever is happening internally. So it's not uncommon.
Yeah. So we've talked about how, perpetual tardiness is a sign of ADHD. We've talked about, not just always on the move and, being night owls. Are there some other common signs or not so common signs that is linked to ADHD?
One that immediately comes to mind, which I think is going to be a calling to a lot of my sisters, is being severely defensive. And they call that, it's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So
what?
if you sat back and you thought about how you receive feedback, and it could be any type of feedback. It could be feedback that's snappy and not constructive. It could be feedback even from a manager that is constructive and willing to help you, but we tend to really internalize it. And we start to think that the world hates us, or that we have to defend every move we made instead of just receiving it and being reflective. So yes, rejection sensitivity to dysphoria. Another one that comes to mind is emotional dysregulation. These are the ones that people don't know about. Emotional dysregulation. So I'm going to go from child and I'm going to go to adult.
Child, I feel like I'm in a therapy session. Let me relax myself.
So with children, it could be the smallest thing that happened and it really sets them off. So whether that's their screaming, crying, or, some children show more like aggressive anger, but it's like the smallest thing, you're like, oh we barely did anything. But to them, that emotional dysregulation in that moment, that is how their brain is choosing to respond. Again, we have to remember it. I always relate things back to executive function, your executive functions. I actually need to tell y'all what those are, but we'll come back to that. Now, as an adult, the smallest thing might set you off. So maybe you snapping back, maybe you got the hand up, you cussing somebody out, or we can fight, or whatever it is. Oddly enough, that's bringing you that dopamine satisfaction. Like that's bringing you that dopamine rush. I see people that argue for pleasure. Yeah, that's a thing. People don't think about all that stuff. But when I think about tropes or misnomers or stereotypes like the angry Black woman, I immediately go, some of that could just very well be like this snappiness that's more so related to them being neurodivergent than it is to just them being inherently angry women because they're Black. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, people don't know about that part. So a lot of times we're misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. Sometimes we're misdiagnosed with anxiety disorder. While those things can coexist, we tend to not get the ADHD diagnosis as well, which can explain the rest of the stuff.
Oh, Jesus. It's getting real, real personal. My God.
I'm sorry to be reading your life, but you called me on here. You something comes.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, sis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Man. Okay. What led you to seek out professional help to get this diagnosis? How did you know to go?
I love my story because I didn't. I didn't. I was severely burnt out from my job on top of, I was tardy. Okay, so I was in education and I was a really good teacher because a lot of ADHDers tend to be like people pleasers. We tend to be overachievers, high achieving people. We tend to overcommit to things. In the education system, those things work out really well because there's always something to do in education. There's always a problem to fix. And I was fixing all the problems. And I think that's why I could kind of offset the tardiness to work because I think they were just happy to have me there because I was an asset to the team. So I think the constant people pleasing, no boundaries, overcommitting, just taking on way too much really got to me. And I just kind of like would crash when I got home. Like, so I would be this amazing educator at work. And then I would get home and I'm like falling asleep on my couch, passed out, sometimes ate, sometimes didn't, or stopped for fast food. It just was like this cycle I was in. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Am I depressed? On top of, I felt like I couldn't commit to relationships. So I was like, as soon as relationships got kind of like serious, I would be ready to like back out of them. And I'm like, so for you guys to understand my background, I had an estranged biological mother. So while I have two moms now and I'm raised by my father, I thought that this was this deep mother wound that I needed to heal. Like, that's why I'm not willing to commit to people. Maybe that's where my depression is stemming from. I thought me passing out and being burnt out from work was depression. I didn't really know. But this was around the time where online everybody's talking about self-care, everybody's talking about going to therapy. And while that wasn't commonplace for my family, I was like, well, I do have insurance. What's the point of having insurance if you're not going to invest in some type of doctor? I don't get sick a lot. I don't necessarily have a bunch of medications. So I just decided to go for it to see what the hell was wrong with me. And so while in those appointments, and so she practiced heavily like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically trying to find like replacement behaviors for things, or really having you to analyze your belief systems and things like that. And while those things helped, there was still some core issues, even if it was just me rambling in our therapy sessions and talking over her, or missing our therapy sessions, or she would give me like homework assignments and I didn't do them, the whole nine. But while showing up for myself in therapy, one day she finally came back and was like, hey, we need to talk. Have you heard of ADHD? Now, again, I'm an educator, so the only ADHD that I really had heard of was from students, and I'm gonna keep it a buck, Black bad boys in my classroom that wouldn't sit down, and although I had a heart for those young men, I didn't know why I did. Now I do. Although I had a heart for them and I was compassionate with those boys, I had never heard about it in adults. So, and that was just 2 years ago. So, she told me, and I love this part, she told me, and I got off my therapy session. It was all virtual. So I got off my therapy session and I went on and hyper-focused on my next thing. And then she came back like 2 weeks later, like, okay, so have you looked up ADHD and have you thought about what treatments you wanted to look at? And I was like, I ain't even gonna lie, I forgot you told me that. I was like, I forgot you told me I had ADHD. So let me get back to you next
That
week,
is so funny.
And after she brought it back, I was like, oh yeah, like, why would you? So it's classic ADHD stuff. So I then started looking into it. I ran into some blogs. I ran into Attitude Mag, one of my favorites, and just kind of was reading. And I was like, oh my God, this is my whole life. And I almost went through like a little grief, because you get kind of sad because you're like, oh shit, had I known this, I probably would have did this, or had I known this, or how could no one, and I always want my people to be patient with our family. How come nobody saw this in me? These were the things I got whoopings for. Yeah. Losing stuff, whooping. Room not clean, whooping. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm like, wow, all the things that were issues for me ended up really just being ADHD symptoms.
Yeah.
And from there, I was like, it's a lot of people like this. Yeah. So that's my story. I did not go seek diagnosis.
Yeah.
So when I'm coaching people through that now, I'm like, it's a whole nother conversation for us to have, but I'm coaching people through it now. And I'm like, you want to make sure the one thing I tell people is to connect childhood to now. Just tell your story. These are not things that just onset happened for you. Mm-hmm. Really be honest with yourself about your childhood. Did you remember homework, or did your mom have a schedule for you where you couldn't remember homework, or you couldn't, where you couldn't forget your homework? Because a lot of times our parents are regulating our lives for us. They are our executive function. In the moment that they're pulled away, me, college girl, I was struggling and I thought I was dumb. Now, mind you, this is, if I wasn't straight A, I was for sure A and B, top 10% of my class. Like I was athlete the whole nine. So I just could not get the college part down. I couldn't prioritize when I should be studying. I'm staying up all night. I'm crashing. People was giving Adderalls. Like it was a whole thing. And I just never really connected. I thought it was because I was an athlete. I was a collegiate athlete. I played basketball in college. So I thought, it's because I got to go to practice at 1 every day. It's too much. I think in retrospect, it was never that. Matter of fact, basketball probably helped. I think had I not had that little bit of structure, I don't know what I think. I just thank God. I thank God I made it through. I made it over.
Yeah. It's sort of heavy because it's like you go in that shame spiral, right? You know, like, why didn't I know? Because even with you talking, I'm over here like, well, look, let me swallow. So like the little frog don't come to my throat because like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming because this is my whole life. And had I just known, I could have like had all of these things around me but it's like, I can't go back in time. We can't go back in time. Yeah. Can you help us understand? Because I'm sure there are other folks listening like me where it's just like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. How do we move forward and like understanding ourselves and becoming more self-aware without going down the shame spiral?
Yeah. The biggest hump for women to get over is not the ADHD that in itself. It is, like you said, it's the shame.
Yeah.
And shame is probably the most debilitating thing or paralyzing thing that we are going to cope with as women, because we're women, because people have imposed these gender roles and stereotypes on us. And so we have these standards that we're trying to meet. We don't know who set them. We just know that we're supposed to keep a spick and span house. We just know we need to be on time. We just know we need to be able to entertain the family. It's just so much that we have shame around, when in fact, I say the very first step on your journey is to accept it. When I first found out I had ADHD, I was trying to bargain it. And if you guys look up the grief cycle, with grief, first you're in denial. I was in denial because I told my doctor, I said, girl, I ain't got no ADHD. You talking about like the boys in my classroom have? Because I was like, girl, nah, I wouldn't have a master's degree. I literally started trying to. So after I was in denial, I started trying to bargain like, well, ain't no way I would do this if I had, and I'm, telling myself these things. And it wasn't until I just really accepted like, hey, your brain is different.
Yeah.
And acceptance is not easy, but it is the first step to me on your journey of really living that full, authentic life. And so when you learn to accept it, then you can start to raise awareness for it. And by awareness, I'm not saying you have to stand on a hill with a picket fence, but you can start letting family members know, hey, and I'm saying that lightly. I know it's easier. It's easier said than done, but you can kind of start raising awareness around it and then start accommodating yourself. I actually want to say that differently. I think acceptance is the first step. Accommodating is the second step. And then that's when you can start to raise awareness, because the first step is for you to be kind to yourself. I always tell people, look, you want people to make all these accommodations and supports for you, but how are you supporting yourself?
Yeah.
Like, if you know that you have trouble eating, why don't you have like a snack bucket in your refrigerator to where, okay, maybe you're getting those little like $3, protein.
Stop calling me out. I legit forget to eat. It's so bad.
It's a real thing, girl. Why you ain't setting an alarm to remember? I have an alarm to go off at 12:05 every day, and it's like, girl, eat you something.
Okay.
It say eat your damn lunch. I don't know if you can cook on here. Because of myself out. Like, girl,
I am doing that right now because I'll forget if I don't do it right now.
No, and honestly, sometimes I ignore the alarm, but at least something that's trying to, get me up.
It's a system.
We will lock in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's not a deficit of attention, because I can lock into something that I care about and I'm on that thing for hours. And I'm the one to deprive myself of all human all human body system functions. Like, I'm not going to pee, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to answer my phone, I'm not going to text you back. This is the thing. I'm drilled into this thing.
I swear to you, just last week I asked myself, why do you wait till the last minute to pee? Like, you are a grown woman. If you know you got to pee, just go pee. Why do you wait till the last minute?
It's definitely related to that. It's definitely related to those dopamine levels and not getting the signal early enough. Like you'll feel it, but it's not enough for. So it's two different things. It's one thing to know something. It's another thing to do something.
Yeah.
We will know. We have a lot of know. The do is where the executive functioning comes out. That's where there's a gap. That's where there's an impairment. And I'm trying to, that's why I kind of made it my business to be like, I need people to know about this, because there's a lot of children first, and children become adults, that are just being simply misunderstood. And I think we could parent better. I think we could love each other better if we all were aware that, hey, some people's brains are functioning differently.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Man.
So we're going to heal, you got to accept, then you have to start to accommodate yourself.
And then spread awareness.
Yes, ma'am.
Why was it so important for you to create a specific space for Black women with ADHD, your social media platforms and your podcast?
That was important for me because when I went looking for Black women with ADHD, and more specifically Black millennial women I can relate to, because like I'm a sister, like I'm a whole, we gonna twerk a little bit. I'm listening to Megan Thee Stallion. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a Black woman, but I've always kind of been a quirky Black girl too, socially awkward. And I just really wasn't seeing myself and my story in the things that I did find. Now, while there were some Black women speaking to it, when I watched, I wasn't like, I couldn't connect to it. And so I wanted to see a space. What I wrote down in my notebook was like, I wanted the sister's guide to ADHD. I want the homegirl's guide to ADHD. Mm-hmm. I wanted you to be talking to your homegirl about what you were struggling with, and somebody finally understood what you meant. You know, because I couldn't really talk to my friends about, because all my friends be on time, or all my friends, you know, I go to their apartment is pristine and clean, you know, so I'm just like, ugh. You know, and I wanted to connect with people that had that experience, and I wanted Black women to see themselves. So many things I could say, but I noticed that a lot of Black women are overachievers and high achievers, and we feel like we have to have the next degree, and we feel like we have to do the next big thing, or we're people pleasing, because we do have that, we do have a knack to solve problems and to see things differently. So people come to us. I don't know. People come to you about a different way to think about something for problem solving. Yeah. All the time. And we tend to take on a lot of people's stuff. We tend to people please. And so, you know, next thing you know, people are saying I have anxiety or I'm depressed. And while those things might be true, I think I've learned through just conversations with my people on like Twitter space and just women within Sistas With ADHD's community that we were living with ADHD and had no idea. And that knowledge completely will shift how you're caring for yourself. Yeah. Everybody's talking about self-care and they trying to leave it at like, you know, taking baths and face masks, and those things are cool too, because I do them too. But true self-care is like, if I'm being authentic and true to myself, what do I need? Yeah. What do I need? I need 15 to 20 extra minutes of grace on my time clock because I'm simply unable to do it. Yeah. You know, I need to make sure that I'm setting an alarm to eat every day because my body is not getting those hunger signals so that I can eat something, so I can care for my body. I need to tell my friends, hey, I might be about 20 minutes late. My partner lies to me about what time date night is. They're like, it's at 8, or they'll be like, it's at 7, but it won't be till 8 or whatever. Yeah. When my friends do that for me, I feel so loved. I really do. It takes so much stress off of me because, and I literally tell them, I'm like, y'all, don't tell me the accurate time of an event. Like, help me. Just tell me 30 minutes or something. Yeah, you tell me, because I promise you, it never fails. It never. And one of my best friends, she gets like, she's good now. And recently we went out. And she told me the dinner was at one time, and we got there late because of me. And we were actually on time because she told me that. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. I felt so relieved because, you know, it's like if I'm late now, it intensifies the anxiety, right? And I'm like feeling like uncomfortable and I don't know, it's just all these things, right? So I can relax. My nervous system is calm now because I'm okay, we're here, we're good. I'm like, yes, please. That's the only time I think it's acceptable to lie to me. Don't lie to me unless you're lying about the time of an event. And so, you know, I feel like Black women deserve to see themselves. TikTok was taking off around the time. It's funny because I created Sistas With ADHD, but I didn't even know that TikTok had an ADHD side to it. Oh, really? But when I would scroll TikTok, I ain't see nobody that look like me. Slowly but surely, there are more Black women speaking about their story, but it wasn't anyone. So I was just like, no, we need a space for us. Yeah. I always have to shout them out. Renee Brooks, Black Girl Lost Keys, great blog. She started back in like 2017, if not before. And Ingra Shea has something, I think she does. She's an ADHD coach as well. She has a Facebook group called Black Women ADHD Executives. So her space is really that C-suite, corporate suite, you know, women who we tend to move up high because we're good. Because we're really good at what we do. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we can't manage all the things, you know, so those women, those were some of the first women that I found, but I still didn't see myself in them. And that's okay. That doesn't mean the work that they weren't doing wasn't helpful or good. Yeah. I just wanted something for diversity. System. Yeah. You said something a while back that in the conversation that really triggered something to me. So I have an entire platform, an entire online community called Healing from a Mother Wound, and helping folks, adults, sons and daughters walk through, specifically Black women, walk through
mama trauma. And when you said that about your estranged mother and then understanding about ADHD, you have definitely encouraged me to like do some studying around the links between the two and how we can diagnose or misdiagnose where things are stemming from, or if they're all related or intertwined. I'm really curious to know. So, girl, we may have to do some work together.
Yeah, and honestly, I really was able to forgive my mom through learning I had ADHD, because I'm always like, I don't want to say I'm always asking people, but I have, asked people that knew her growing up, or like my grandmother, like my dad's mom knew her and things like that. And I've asked questions, and every time I ask a question, it kind of confirms like she probably had it too. One of the things with ADHD that we struggle with is called object permanence. And object permanence is basically, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. As crazy as that sounds. So like, let's say I got my counter with makeup and I know I own this lipstick, and that lipstick could be sitting right there, but maybe it's behind something. I'm panicking because I don't see it. Where is it at? Where is it at? It also shows up in the people within our lives. So I don't know if you've ever like moved away from an area, or you just kind of stop, you lose contact with your friends and family. So when I went out to college, I was only like an hour and some change away from my home, but I never called home. It wasn't that I didn't love them or care about them. It's just that they simply weren't crossing my mind because of object permanence. And so through learning different things about ADHD and connecting them to my mother, I mean, I think in my mind, she also had ADHD, if not something else. She was some type of neurodivergent. And I think those really affected how she showed up in motherhood, for me, and I have a brother. So, and I think after a while, you just don't want to come back, because it's the shame. Now we're in these cycles of shame, I think the shame part is so important to understand with ADHD, because you might be, let's take, I know you don't struggle with this organization, but a lot of women with ADHD might. And so a lot of times we start to say that that's us, and it's not. Like, it's now you go from my car is a mess to I am a mess. And it's like, well, no. Your car is a mess. You're brilliant. You know what I'm saying? And so we really have to learn how to separate the two, so that we're not just constantly beating ourselves up or constantly going down these shame spirals and apologizing all the time. I even talk to people how they show up when their ADHD symptoms show up, how you go about it. If you're walking in late to a meeting, thank y'all for waiting on me. You don't have to say sorry all the time, because that keeps you in a state of shame. There's so many different ways that you can show up and be grateful. I try to train, women within my community to just try to express gratitude over shame and being sorry and apologetic all the time. I'm not saying never say sorry, but if there's something that's literally outside of your ability, learn to be grateful when people are supporting and showing compassion there. Yes.
Oh, girl, all the feels. How do we go about encouraging a loved one to get assessed? So like me, I have not gotten my, official diagnosis, though I'm like 99.9999% sure. But I can also see certain things in other people, like this may be something more than just who they are. How do we go about lovingly and graciously encouraging someone to go see someone and help them get proper diagnosis so we can move forward?
I think that's a great question. And that's another reason I created Sistas with ADHD, because I wanted to represent ADHD. Although I'm not a doctor, although I'm not a therapist, I think that my time in education and what I've seen just on a classroom basis and what I've learned just from talking to other women and doing my own research, I really felt like the way that it was being spoken about was like something was wrong with you. And I very much so want people to know that there's nothing wrong with you, but you do process differently. So if you're wanting to talk to a family member that you think might have ADHD, I think one of the best ways might be to start with like a video. A YouTube channel I adore is called How to ADHD with Jessica McCabe. Her videos are short. They're like 5 minutes or less. And she will break down something very simple, bite-sized, and she will, send that. So I really feel like sharing social media content is good. There are TikToks out there that will kind of like animate things that are happening in ADHD's lives. So that way you can kind of like break that barrier with a little humor. And then you want people to know that, hey, nothing's wrong with you, but this might be explaining what's been happening in your life, how this has been showing up in your life. And I think it's just reassurance, is supporting them no matter what their decision is. Like, I've talked to people and I feel like they have ADHD and I put it on their mind, but some people want to shy away from that.
Yeah.
We have a healthy fear of the medical system.
Yeah.
History is what it is. You know, we don't always want to subject ourselves to their diagnoses, as well as their medication. I understand us wanting to be fearful of that. And that's why I think it's really important that we represent neurodivergence. We represent ADHD and just be like, hey, it's just a brain type. Just like you have a skin color, just like you have an eye color, just like you have, you know, all these different traits. You also have a brain type. You have a neurotype.
Yeah, that's so helpful. That's so helpful because even, man, that's, oh, child, this is.
And I know women out there who are living with undiagnosed ADHD have been beating themselves up, because I was one of them. I had no idea of all the things that I thought was wrong with me. I never crossed my mind. Yeah. I just thought that I was depressed, and I, you know, I didn't know what answer I was looking for, but luckily I got it.
I remember when I first started going to therapy years ago, what led me there, I was just like, something gets wrong with me. And I remember in this last year or so, that same thought just started reappearing. I have in my notes and memos, like trying to figure it out, right? Like a puzzle piece. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. So it's so difficult to unlearn that, right? So when you say it's just a brain type, that's so powerful, because I think about like my skin type. I have oily skin, right? And it's something I've always hated. But when we first started this, one of the first things you said was like, I just love how your skin is so pretty, right? That is a direct result of me having oily skin. Right. Oily skin, right? And it's simply that it's a skin type. It's normal, oily, dry, right? It just is what it is. We don't think good or bad.
Because of it, you treat it the way it needs to be treated.
Same thing with
neurotype. Same thing with ADHD.
Girl,
you need to treat the way your brain. You need to treat your brain the way it deserves to be treated, because it simply is different.
This is so powerful, man. Jesus Christ, y'all! I'm about to be over here a whole shoulder shaking, crying mess if I don't end this episode.
Get it out, girl. And you know, I relate to what you were saying about like writing in your memos in your journal. And I remember one time I even wrote, I don't know if I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I said, I don't know what this is, but when I figured this out, I know that the rest of my life is going to happen. Like I knew something was holding me back. It was like assiduous. I'm like, I don't know what it is. Like, I just cleaned up this house like 2 weeks ago, spent my whole weekend, girl. I was like, I don't know how many times my friends were hanging out and I chose not to go, whether I couldn't find that one shirt that I liked, or it was the smallest of stuff where I was depriving myself of my social life. The whole night, it was just a mess. Food would be going bad. I'm spending hundreds of dollars at the grocery store because I want to eat healthier or whatever. Cook none of it. All the food's going bad. It's a thing. And now I don't go to the grocery store unless I know I'm cooking. If it's on my agenda, then I would go pick those couple things up.
Yeah. Man, this is so powerful. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I definitely want to do more collaborations. I think that this is, if you're down for it, of course, I think this can be a beginning of something really beautiful in helping people like understand their not only inner child wounds, but like how to show up for ourselves better when it comes to things like this, and to understand that we just all have different brain types. It's just, I don't want to repeat, but like, this is just, man, this is beautiful. And
I would love to, if you are going to seek an assessment, I would love to follow you on that journey. Maybe I feature you on my podcast where it's just like, hey, and then what were the questions? Like, how did you feel? Because I'm also learning that a lot of women, I'm gonna keep it real, specifically Black women, are finally getting to the doctor, and then they're like, "No, you don't have ADHD. You just da-da-da." And we're experiencing dismissiveness.
Yep.
I call it medical gatekeeping. Like, okay, so they can have this diagnosis, but you're telling me that I just need to lose weight, or you're telling me I just have anxiety, or I'm just depressed. No.
Which is why. And it does take a while. Even now, looking for a psychologist, the biggest barrier has been finding a Black psychologist, because I don't want to go to a white one. I've been referred to one, but I don't want to because of these specific reasons you're detailing now. And and I do that in everything, right? Now, granted, I don't have the same luxury now living back home in Alabama, but when I was in Nashville, my chiropractor was Black, dentist Black, OBGYN, everybody Black, because I want to be seen, heard, and valued. And if I do need some help, I want that help to be targeted to my specific problem, not to something they just like, oh, she's just, whatever. Because they'll write some prescription for all kinds of stuff. And it's like, no, that's not what I needed.
Right. And I had an OBGYN in college. Mine was white. I had an OBGYN write me an Adderall prescription one time. And the only reason I knew to even say the word Adderall, because my little brother had ADHD. We're not related at all, but he was in my home, you know what I'm saying? And my mom was like, you might, like, I can't explain it. Like, my mom knew because my parents were educated. Matter of fact, my parents were both educators. So it's like they knew about these things, but like no one was saying to me, girl, you have ADHD, you're going to struggle with X, Y, and Z. She was like, I was like, Mom, I'm just too much in college, She's like, girl, if you're having trouble focusing, just go see if your doctor will write you this. And then he wrote it, but like no one ever connected dots for me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And I kept that same little bottle for like 2 years and like turned into dust. I didn't know what it was. Yeah. I didn't get it. And I think we deserve to, one, be educated on it, one, as a people, but then two, we deserve to just, personally, you deserve to know. And then as a people, we deserve to know so we can show compassion for people that we see struggling with ADHD.
Thank you so much, girl. That may be something I consider, maybe sharing my journey via podcasting. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to be that vulnerable child because I'm over here about to break down just talking to you. Just talking to you. But that may be something that I do. If, I believe it's going to be something that's actually helpful. Because the way I feel so vulnerable and butt naked right now, Jesus Christ. Yeah. But anyways, thank you so much, Torrian, for all that you shared and for being vulnerable and sharing your journey. Like that's quite courageous. I appreciate your platform so much. And just in this short time that I've been following you, you've helped me a ton. So thank you.
Thank you. Because I get to beat myself up and I don't post every day. And I'm just like, I have ADHD, folks. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm trying to do better about planning ahead, but like, that's just not always how my brain works. I'm gonna have spurts where I'm just feeling super creative and I have spurts where I'm like, I need to reset and I'm gonna give myself that grace so I don't burn out, because I know this is a, very important work. So
it is very important.
I appreciate hearing that, it kind of helps my little dopamine to be like, okay, people need you. Stop beating yourself up. Stop comparing yourself to everyone. Just do the work,
Yeah. All right, y'all, let's get into brownie points. This is a segment that we take time out to celebrate ourselves, celebrate yourself for whatever, anything good, anything positive, anything light, anything warm. Celebrate yourself. It could be as simple as you finally got to clean your baseboards, whatever it is, give yourself brownie points. Torrian, what are you giving yourself brownie points for today?
As small as this is, I went to the gas station today and I ended up cleaning out all the little clutter in my car, just the little stops you make for things like that. And it was just really important for me to anytime I can kind of reset my space. So, clear space, clear mind. And so I was just really proud of myself for cleaning out my car at the gas station. Like, okay, girl, washing my little windows off. Sometimes when I'm pumping gas, I just be on my phone scrolling, but I decided to use that little bit of time in a productive way. So as small as that is, it was important for me.
I love that so much. That's very rewarding.
What you giving yourself brownie points for?
Today, I'm giving myself brownie points for, this is so random, but I'm so proud. I've been talking about it on social media. So as you see, I have knotless braids and I just got them this past Saturday. Well, I had a scheduled appointment for some weeks on end to get these knotless done. The day before my appointment, a friend of mine posted her prices for her braids. And I was like, wait a minute, these prices are half. Like, what they still doing this? And I was like, Lord, I want to cancel. It's at the last minute. I'm like, you know what? These my coins. and I hate because again, that people pleasing, tendency. I'm like, I don't want to do this. But I'm like, I sent that when I reached out to my friend, like, hey, can you fit me in the morning? And she could. I sent that cancellation text, like, I'm so sorry, I got to cancel. I'm so sorry. But I felt so good. Because
it's your money, you're the consumer.
It saves me so much money.
And the thing is, and honestly, that's not small. It is so hard to advocate for yourself. It is so hard to say, like, because you're scared about what everybody else is going to think or that they're going to hate you. And honestly, people with ADHD always have this we always have this gut feeling that somebody's mad at us.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Like, who mad at me now? Or somebody, but that's big for you to say. I'm not worried about what somebody else thinks about it. I'm the consumer. I earn these ducats and I want my ducats to be spent wisely. I'm going over there. So
thank you for affirming me. I appreciate that. Because I was like, oh, she's going to be mad. And I like, yes, whole thing. So those my brother. Yeah.
And even if she do, she is not the only person in braids.
Hello. And I love my braids. I love them so much.
They look good, girl.
All right, y'all, give yourself brownie points. It could be something so simple. Whatever it is, just write it down in a note. Maybe even, make a folder in your notes that is just for brownie points, right? And we listen to this every week, you add a new one to your folder, right? Like just whatever it is. I just want you to love on yourself a little bit more and not worry about what you didn't get done this week or whatever else that didn't happen. Just relax on that and focus on something that's beautiful. Torrian, before we go, tell us how we can support you and give us some more detail about your coaching program and how we can patronize you and get in on this healing.
Yes. So first and foremost, you guys can follow me at Sistas With ADHD, and that's SISTAS with ADHD. It's all one word. That is the community. My personal account is Torrian is all things. You can follow me there. Torrian is all things where that's just me as a person. I sprinkle some ADHD in there, and the Sistas With ADHD is dedicated to that work. I'm in the process of revamping my website. So if you want to support me at this time, I do have a, coffee, where you can buy me a coffee, which is like $5 if you want to support that way, or you can just simply share my content. That makes me happy as well. And, just engage. If there's questions you have, I'm very responsive in DMs. And of course, I want you to listen to my podcast and leave a review if that helps you, or share it with somebody that you think it could be helpful to. So honestly, just get involved with me. Right now, I'm just really trying to build that community. I'm really just trying to grow so that when I do bigger things, because I've already been asked to speak at things, and I'm like, oh, that's happening really fast. So
get ready.
At this point, I'm trying to grow in numbers. So share my content, listen to the podcast, write a review, and
wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And you guys for listening. Please do the same for me. Write a review on Apple Podcasts. I'm also on YouTube now. You can check this out. Look up Shades of Brown Podcast on there. Follow me on social media, Instagram and Facebook. That's at Shades of Brown Podcast. On TikTok, that's at Mother Wound Healer. And of course, I'm on YouTube as well. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you know someone who you're thinking could benefit from this, share it with them. Also, if you want some merch, go to everythingalyb.myspreadshop.com, or just check the link in my bio on social media. And of course, if you're thinking about starting a podcast yourself, but you don't know where to start, holla at your girl and I got you.
Oh, girl, I forgot my merch.
Girl, yes, tell us.
So I say at Sistas With ADHD, we like to keep it hood, holy, and hyper-focused. So go buy y'all hood, holy, and hyper-focused t-shirts, okay? I got mugs and things like that. I got some other stuff coming out. I won't talk about it yet. And then I'm going to drop my new shirt. I'm going to go ahead and give y'all an exclusive
one. Exclusive?
We're getting exclusives, okay? I'm dropping the Ain't No Shame in My Brain line at the beginning of June. And so, yeah. I love it too. I'm just like, this is my thing. So yes, I really want that to be the message. Like, it's okay. I want you to really embrace who you are. So ain't no shame in my brain. Hood, holy, and hyper focused. I got some resources coming for you guys. So SistasWithADHD.com. It's growing as we speak. I gotta get my ducks in a row. But just keep coming back and checking on me, okay? And if I don't say nothing, just say like, girl, where you at? Yes, ma'am. So
all right, y'all. Well, I'll leave you with this. I hope that you be well. Hope that you love well, and I hope that you be loved well. You deserve that. Till next time. Bye.
I love that.